Good morning. I would like to call the Wednesday, March 17th DAC meeting to order. We will begin with roll call. Haley Dellery, present. Joseph Colon.
Present.
Danny McElmurray.
I'm here.
Eleanor Burke.
Present.
Miguel Viteri. Absent. Lewis Haywood. He's in the meeting room.
Yeah. Also, Miguel called me that he couldn't make it, but we found an alternate way for him to get involved.
Lewis
Okay.
is online right now.
Okay, thanks. So Lewis.
Hi.
Present. And Lindsay Glatz.
Present.
Present. The public comment form link is available at nola.gov/CPC and will be available until the end of the 5-minute recess, after which public comment will be read into the record as part of the consideration of dockets. We will begin with the presentation of dockets. The first item is the consideration of design review docket 2621 for a property located at 4535 South Claiborne Avenue. We have John Dower signed up to speak on behalf of this application, and Joanna is the CPC staff member assigned to this case. As a reminder, following staff presentation, the applicant will have 10 minutes to present.
So this is a project that involves the construction of a new 3-story parking shell, and it's located in an enhancement corridor, and it also has it's a parking lot with over 10 spaces. So that's why it's being seen by DOT.
Thank you. John? Is the applicant's representative available for this to present?
It looks like they're trying to connect, Haley.
Okay, thanks.
Why don't we take this one and cycle it back. If they're not on by now, let's cycle back around.
Good morning. This is John from Roses
Okay,
Ford. I just called in. Yeah.
Okay,
I think
John,
I've
you now
logged in
have 10
twice.
minutes to present.
All right. So this is 4535 South Claiborne Avenue. It's a new 3-story, around 15,000 square foot cold dark shell, and the owner intends to use it as a medical clinic and pharmacy in the future, but right now we're just permitting the cold dark shell. And so it utilizes street parking and site parking, and the site parking has permeable paving to meet the requirement. And yeah, I'll take any questions you have.
I have some comments regarding the exterior of the building.
Yeah.
The DAC sort of exists to make sure that proposals for new construction fit within the context. And my feeling is that the sort of exterior materials of this building aren't really reflective of the neighboring context, which in many instances is institutional or residential. Nearby, a lot of wood residential structures. Across the street, there's some brick institutional and commercial structures. And I was wondering, while I think this building is, perfectly appropriate as a medical facility, somewhere not on Claiborne, this part of Claiborne Avenue, I feel like the use of materials is not really reflective of what's going on nearby. And I would hope to see revisions to it that sort of took that into account, including the use of brick as an exterior material, and that didn't have such a dominant wall of automobile driving in front of the building.
Actually, on the Zoom meeting right now with the city.
I also feel like the window to wall ratio is very low. Those very small windows on the second and third floor are inappropriate and not really conducive towards creating a facade that gives back to the city. Also, I'm very concerned about the removal of a mature oak tree.
Eleanor, you're stealing my thunder.
Well, I'm sorry to thunder, but I'm disturbed by the dedication of this building to the automobile, and particularly with the removal of a tree to allow that to happen. And I would encourage the owner to perhaps consider reconfiguring the parking so that it can be done at a major through driveway on Claiborne Avenue, as is shown in the drawings. That's So those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Danny from Parkways. Again, just talking about, not only do you propose to remove a healthy live oak that's over 24 inches in DBH, but you're also, the placement of your building has the need to reduce the other live oak, the canopy of that live oak, by probably about 30% or more, which is also probably not going to help that tree survive very long. You don't have a sufficient quantity of street trees along Cadiz, and you don't even show any kind of replacement for the tree that's to be removed. And then, in terms of on-site stuff, I'm curious as to how this is really for the planning staff, I'm curious as how this meets the side buffer yard requirements for such a large building. As Eleanor said, it's contextually way larger and much more different than everything around it. There are similar buildings kind of across the street where they're a little bit larger, but the material choices and their setbacks, and they create a little bit more of a blending into their context. And then looking at your site plan, I was looking at the ADA parking, and it doesn't look like that meets code. I don't see how having a 5% cross slope on parking, assuming there's a zero, there's a zero curb there. It seems like you've got a 5% slope for your ADA parking, and then in order to get to another portion of it, it's a weird cross slope, and then there's no railing to keep people falling from off the ramp into the parking. So, but I was really curious as to how Planning Commission sees having parking right up on the property line without a buffer around the parking lot, even though it's an interior. I thought that the parking had to have a buffer around it, all the way around it, and there's no trees, those spaces. And I mean, I know it's all shaded, but there's a lot that, building aside, which I think is, I understand kind of the purpose for it and the model of it, but I'm not so sure that this has been cited or this is entirely appropriate for this location.
Yeah, if I can add, I just want to begin by saying excited for the redevelopment of a vacant lot. I think less concerned about the density and materiality, although both Eleanor and Danny are right that placing a 3-story rectangle is probably not the best site and building design. There can be a lot more responsive moves that the proposal can make, including, as Eleanor cited, incorporating much more of the materiality, if not into the overall, if not the primary materials or the primary facade choice, then definitely into accents and, for example, the grounding of the foundation and the cornice treatment, for example. The building just kind of tapers off and there's no real respect to its, first floor or kind of roofing element. Additionally, the site design should be, again, more responsive to other buildings around it. And right now it's proposed as, so it reads like a hospital or a medical center, which is, makes sense at first, but considering the context of a hospital right around the corner, the moves that the DAC is recommending or will recommend, I'm assuming, when we take a vote, will make it much more appropriate and signal to people what kind of facility this will be. And so therefore, the last thing I'll recommend is in a redesign of facade to embrace color, if not, again, as the primary source, then definitely as with accent treatments and things like that. But yeah, I definitely agree with other committee members on their statements.
So, DPW's point of view, you're showing. I mean, basically, you're indicating that the property ends in the middle of that existing curb cut, which seems a little off from current conditions, but I assume your survey's right. Although sometimes we get sidewalk designs that are kind of out of whack with the survey, so it doesn't look quite right because it looks like the driveway is within that whole parking lot when you look at it on the ground. But at any rate, the sidewalk would actually have to align with the neighboring sidewalk, so you can't really relocate the neighbor's sidewalk by the 4 or 5 feet that you're showing it to set it back further. So you actually have to align with whatever they're giving you to start out with, at least. What we'd like to see is, whatever you can do to provide a little more paving, maybe at the bus stop. There's basically on the right of way there's just a kind of a dugout spot. So just a little bit of paving there. You're not going to be able to do too much with the oak tree, but it would be a nice amenity to provide as just part of the design. And that's kind of what I had. I echo the other questions about setbacks and that sort of thing, but I'm just worried about the right of way.
I also have a question about, isn't this the parking lot for the church? And if it is, then where does the church parking go?
The church doesn't own this lot, so I'm sure where.
Yeah.
Yeah, this property, another developer years ago and re-subdivided off.
So is there a side yard next to the house on Claiborne that's under that parking lot?
There's about a 8-foot side yard.
Okay. Got it.
And that is commercially zoned along Claiborne. That's why there's no buffer to that side, because it's commercial. The buffer is only required to the residential side, which we have provided.
Right, yeah, the question was really that there's this fence line there, but it looks like the parking lot's actually, today, it overlaps the next property. Right? Oh, all that pavement, if you've ever seen it out there. Maybe it's working off the survey.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other comments, I'm sure that Joanna can work with the applicant to incorporate some of those changes. And if there's no other comments, we'll move on to the second item. The second item is consideration of design review docket 3121 for a property at 5612 Canal Boulevard. We have Earl Lario signed up to speak on behalf of the application, and Aspen is the CPC staff member. As a reminder, following the staff presentation, the applicant will have 10 minutes to present.
Yeah, so this is just an ice machine added to an existing structure and site. It meets all the setback requirements within this district. It is required to have a landscape plan. This was one of the comments that came in through permitting. So they haven't submitted a landscape plan, aren't proposing any street trees or anything like that. But based on what we're looking at, it meets the zoning code.
Thank you, Aspen. Earl?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm fine with putting some trees out front. I'm familiar with that because in Jefferson Parish, they require that. This is the first I'm hearing of any landscaping. And in the other machines that we placed in Orleans, we were never required to do landscaping, but you know, I want the property to look as good as it can. And so we probably would do that anyway, just to give it a inviting atmosphere.
Okay.
Is this
Before
location?
we jump into questions, Danny, Earl, is that all the presentation that you wanted to give of the project?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to questions and all that stuff. I just wasn't exactly sure what all you guys, you know, needed for this design review.
Okay, all righty. Well, we will have Aspen work with you on that. As she said, street trees are not required for this site, and the ice vending machine is considered a new structure. So as she goes through her review, if there's any required landscaping from Article 23, she'll let you know, and we can work with you for that.
Okay.
I had a question.
Okay.
I was curious, it seems like all the buildings on Canal Boulevard are set back to this line. And so I was wondering why a structure would be allowed to be built proud of the front building line of all the buildings, you know, pretty much in that area. I understand that it meets zoning, but if you look at the streetscape, for the most part, all of the buildings are beyond a certain setback.
Is that question for me?
No, I think it's more for the CPC staff.
Thank you for pointing that out, Eleanor. I do recall there's a section of the CZO that says a secondary building can't be in front of the front building line of the primary building. So we can look into that. And Aspen will be able to give those comments to Earl, excuse me, to Earl.
Well, and that would actually address my comment, which is, it looks like this building is exactly where the pylon sign is located for this property. So I was really curious about that. And then the other thing is, this is a new building. Doesn't it have to be ADA compliant?
That would be something that would be looked at for permitting with the building code. And I'm not sure.
Right, but that's going to affect the design. If it's got to be ADA compliant, which I'm pretty sure it does, then, you know, that's going to affect what this looks like and where it can be placed.
Okay.
So To my knowledge, the equipment is all ADA compliant. Again, Jefferson Parish requires us to submit documentation showing that the controls are a certain height from the ground. And, you know, all of the features can be accessed if it was someone in a wheelchair. And that is when we go to set the height of the machine, that is a important factor for us. And as far as the facade or the machine being placed where the sign is, it's actually right behind the existing sign that's there. And the street does kind of an S turn right there. So, you know, we can slide the machine back a little bit further if you want it to be in line with the Grand Rental Station building that's already existing. I don't think it's much further back. I guess the concern was just so that we would have some kind of visibility when you drive down the road. Of course, if we can't get a location that has visibility, then it kind of blows us out the water.
Okay. Are there any other comments? If not, we'll move on to the third item, which is consideration of design review docket 3421 for a property at 5330 St. Claude Avenue. Again, we have Earl signed up to speak on behalf of this application, and Joseph is the CPC staff member for this case. After Joseph's presentation, Earl will have 10 minutes to present.
Good morning, all. So this project is very similar to the one that came before it. It is by the same applicant. So therefore the proposal again is very similar. The reason this one is different is due to the site being governed by an existing conditional use zoning docket 144-18. They are changing a previously approved site plan, so it does need to get final approval from the commission in this circumstance. But besides that, the review criteria is similar. I have asked the applicant already for an updated site plan. So while that's not in this set, we we'll continue to work through and review with them through that. That's the extent of my staff presentation.
Thank you, Joseph. Earl, is there anything that you would like to point out about this project?
Same thing here. We want to make sure that the site is inviting. I'm probably will do landscaping there as well, whether it's required or not. This particular location, I was messaging with Joseph earlier. It's going to be a challenging location for us because it's a really slow part of St. Claude that's not being developed too much, and there's a lot of crime in that area, so we're going to have to increase our security cameras and alarm systems and all of that. So I'm actually having some second thoughts on this location because I don't want to put my technician in harm's way when he's servicing the equipment. But at this point, I'm willing to work with the staff, and we can get another site plan or add to that site plan or whatever we're lacking on that one, and then we'll have to decide if we want to move forward and actually put the machine there or not, I guess, after this is all figured out.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes,
All right.
if you guys don't have any other questions, then yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add.
Thank you.
My only question is, again, The reason I keep asking about the ADA accessibility, the accessibility of this facility is because it's on a platform. And so you're not showing any way of getting up on that platform.
So it's actually not on a platform. The machine sits on, it's raised off the ground, but the controls are designed to actually only be, I don't know off the top of my head what the ADA height is, but all of the controls are at the height regulations. And again, Jefferson Parish is very particular about that. So yes, the equipment has been designed to really be ADA compliant nationwide, because I'm assuming they have the same issues, other areas. And this is a piece of equipment that we purchase, and it's already, I just plug it in. So there's no modifying it or anything like that. It comes ready to go up to speed, with all of the latest.
So I guess the reason why I keep questioning is because we don't have a front view of this. All we see are the side and the back. And so that's why I keep questioning it, because I'm not sure how it's operating. I know I've seen them around town. I just need to ask just to make sure I understand how it works, but we don't have a front view.
Can you guys see me right here? I have a photo. Can you see that?
Your camera's not on.
Okay, let's see, how do I get the camera on here?
Just click on start video.
Oh, perfect. Okay, there we go. So does that help a little bit?
Yeah, can you hold it a little closer to the camera so I can see a little bit closer?
So if you see right here, this section is where the skirt is. So the bottom of the machine is actually right where the controls are. So the machine was designed for the controls to be as low as possible. In fact, that's the first thing that would flood if it does take water. And it's designed like that specifically for ADA compliance.
Okay, I just wanted to see what the front looked like. I was just kind of worried about it.
Okay.
Is there any more committee discussion for this one? Okay. If not, we'll move on to the fourth item, consideration of zoning docket 2621 for a property located at 2701 Tulane Avenue. We have Chris Young signed up to speak on behalf of this application, and it has not yet been assigned to CPC staff members, so we have Stephen Kroll to speak on behalf of it.
Yeah, this is Stephen. Thank you, Haley. I'll present this quickly and then turn it over to Chris Young and his architect. This is the convenience store that's located on Broad and Tulane that I've the proposal here is to introduce a gas station component. So a canopy, the pumps, and there's to be modified landscaping, introducing landscaping on the front along Broad and the sides, as well as paint changes, new signage, etc. So I will note that because this is presumably a substantial improvement of the site, it will have to be brought into compliance with all zoning regulations, and that does include a limit on the max number of curb cuts to 2. The site plan is showing 4, so that would need to be reduced to 2. There are landscape requirements, and landscape is shown. I don't know at this point whether it's compliant, but that is something that will go through a CBC review. This is a conditional use, which means that we're fairly early in the entitlement stage at this point. It'll have to go through CBC, which will do a technical review, then the council, and then sort of the approval process at the end of the conditional use process, which will give DPW, Parks on Parkways, and any relevant agency an ability to re-review and to approve drawings. So the drawings are kind of necessarily schematic at this point, but there will be an opportunity for the departments here to make further comment at a later stage in the process.
Thank you, Stephen. Chris, would you like to, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Yeah, thank you, Haley. This is Chris Young, and I have the developer, Zalam Bazaar, with me present. The architect is out of the country. We mostly just want to make ourselves available to answer any questions if the committee has any. I think it's self-explanatory, and Stephen gave a pretty, a substantial overview of what we intend to do. So we mostly want to make ourselves available to answer any questions if you have any. We do consider this a significant improvement on this corner. For those of you who are familiar with the location, you know that it's been sort of a neglected property over the past several years. It was a gas station pre-Katrina. They did have gas pumps at this location in the past, and we are proposing to reintroduce those gas pumps and fuel tanks.
Thanks. Are you building a new building here, or is this just the gas pumps?
No, just the fuel island would be new, and then the existing structure would be the exterior would be renovated.
All right. The reason I ask is because the building runs like the Bowden Street side of the building is on the property line of Bowden, and it's oriented to Bowden, but building in your plans is oriented to Tulane and is showing a dumpster in between Tulane and Bowden. But that's impossible because one, the building is oriented to Bowden and the dumpster would be on the public sidewalk. So basically the Bowden Street has a 12-foot sidewalk, as does Tulane. So, I think that your property lines are off, and I think that the building is not drawn correctly.
Well, we do not propose to erect a new building, so we would have to, the concern that you're expressing, we would obviously, we wouldn't put it on the property line, so we would have to change that.
Yeah, I mean, you can see on the survey on the last sheet of how the site actually is. So basically, what I think we'd be looking for is basically kind of cleaning up the site a little bit. We've always had this parking line shown on the sidewalk at this building. It's been very messy in terms of the public right of way. So any site plan is going to need to show the lot dimensions correctly and show all the parking inside the lot, and whatever is legal per zoning. And then any kind of dumpster enclosure is gonna. I honestly don't know how that can be worked out formally on a city sidewalk. That's going to be pretty tough. I know it's something that's probably always been there, but if we're looking at it, it's probably going to have to be. It's going to have to be corrected.
Yes, sir. If we have to relocate it, obviously we would.
I just want to say that I want to begin by saying that I appreciate the applicant seeking to ameliorate the site. I think it's, an exciting prospect, especially with a unique site like this. I think considering its uniqueness, however, that special attention really needs to be made that the circulation of all transit types, including pedestrians and bicycles, be really incorporated into the plan. And so my question for the applicant, has there been any kind of traffic study or kind of analysis done in and around the site?
No, the quick answer is no, but the applicant is here and then he's expressing a willingness to do that if that is something that you guys require or would require. But no traffic study has been done.
I think I would only suggest that because it's going to the commission and council, and while not baseline required, those kind of documents are always helpful for everyone involved in the process, and especially for the applicant gaining approval. So,
Yeah, Chris, this is Stephen again. I think Joseph is right on that. A circulation study would be very helpful, not only because of the use of the site by pedestrians and transit, but also, like I said in the introduction, the zoning allows us to have 2 curb cuts. And so we're going to require 2 of the curb cuts that are shown to be eliminated unless you get a variance. And I think the only way a variance could be granted is if you had a circulation study that shows it's not possible to operate within the site with only 2 curb cuts. So I think, given the site constraints, it would be really helpful for everyone if there could be a circulation plan showing the movement of trucks, loading vehicles, pedestrians, transit users, everyone through the site would be really helpful.
No, we appreciate that very much, and yes, especially if we have to seek a variance. But even if we didn't, we appreciate the comment, and we're going to do that.
Joseph, can you go back to the elevations? So on these elevations, we see a lot of the pumps, basically, but we don't see the 2 sides of the building that actually face streets. So we need to see those as well. And then what's going to happen on the back of the building, right where the billboard is. And that kind of ties into what others are saying about contextuality. I appreciate that y'all included the building kind of in a context images, the tilt ups and everything, but it would have been really helpful to use the actual buildings that are around there, not made up buildings. It's a little disconcerting because it looks like a gas station in another city, not in New Orleans. And then,
So it's going to look like.
so for Stephen, I'm assuming that this would be something that would definitely have to go for review by all those agencies and have sign off before it's permitted. And especially for the landscape plan and street trees and stuff like that, right? Since this is a conditional use.
Stephen, your microphone might be on mute, but he did mention that in his introduction that, yeah, this is conceptual, and as we get to the different phases, that it would be reviewed by the other agencies.
So Haley, are we treating this as a conceptual review or a design review?
You mean as far as DAC?
Yeah. Are we expecting to see this back, or are we expecting staff to just handle everything that's a concern?
We can handle the concerns as provisos unless, Stephen, you think this would need to come back.
Well, I just want to say that we have there's a lot less space on the property than what's being shown. So, I don't even know I'm not even sure it's going to work in the narrower lot lines. So, if it's significant, it may change the site plan, the concept a little bit, I mean, we don't even have the building correct right now.
Well, Joseph, are you the CPC staff member for this one?
Yeah, Haley, I'm sorry. I minimized my screen and couldn't re-maximize it, so apologize for the delay. This is not required to come back, but if you would like to see it later in the process, I mean, it'll certainly come back to you through the normal permitting process at the end of the conditional use process. If DAC wants to see it back at some point in the future, you can do that at the next meeting, or you can do it at the end of the process. It's really up to you. And just, we haven't assigned this yet. We're really very early in the review process. And so Joseph's not handling it, but someone will at some point in the future. So yeah, it's really up to the committee if they want to see it again.
Is Stephen, so is there, So looking at it, I mean, there are quite a few concerns, you know, especially starting with the site plan and then their ability to do what they're picturing here. So is the timing, is that why we can't see it before it goes through this whole process with?
You,
Uh,
you can, I mean, yes and no. So there's certainly sufficient time to bring it back before DAC at the next meeting. I don't think there's time to do it at a subsequent meeting. So the architect would really need to revise plans and turn them around in time for the next meeting, which can be a challenge, but isn't impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially not having a landscape plan to review, which we all know does not make me happy. But not even having the right site plan to review, I really think, unless the architects are going to have a really hard problem, if nothing else, at least be able to see what the site plan is reflecting the actual survey and actual site conditions. I think that will be very helpful for us to be able to inform our future reviews individually in our departments to make sure that we're all on the same page.
So Chris, if you can, you know, I'm reluctant. I think it's easiest to get in front of the next DAC at the next meeting. It may be possible to do the following meeting. I think that's something we just need to look at internally in terms of our scheduling. So Chris, if you can just communicate the concerns about, I think number one is making sure the plan matches the survey in terms of the location of property lines. Number two is fleshing out the landscape scheme a bit. And if it's possible for your architect to make those revisions, let us know and we'll figure out when we can next get those revised plans in front of this committee.
And the dumpster really has to be moved off of the off of that side of the building, I think. Yeah, so I know dumpster enclosures are important in terms of site.
Yes, Steve. Got it, Stephen.
Okay, so I think, you know, the committee's going to vote after it takes a public comment break, but I think the best thing to do would probably be to vote to defer to the next meeting in 2 weeks, and then we can defer again if we need to, or we can consider it at that time based on your architect's ability to turn around revised plans.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If there's no other comments, this concludes the presentation of the dockets. The committee will now recess for 5 minutes. Consideration of dockets, including public comments, will begin at 10:47. Public comments will be accepted until the end of the close of the 5-minute recess. We'll resume at 10:47.
What? Test.
The digital public comment form is now closed. We will begin with the consideration of dockets, including the public comment portion of the meeting. Joseph, have we received any public comments for any of the dockets?
We have not, no.
Okay, thank you. The first item is consideration of design review docket 2621 for a property at 4535 South Claiborne Avenue. This is a request to permit the new construction of a 3-story cold dark shell. At this time, would the committee like to make a motion?
I have a question for Stephen. Is this item something that we can defer to see revisions, considering the extent of the comments?
Yes, it's the easy distinction is that zoning dockets are harder to defer because those have to go to the council on a very narrow timeline, and design reviews, and this is a design review, don't have such a timeline and can be deferred. So to answer your question, yes, this can be deferred.
Okay. Due to that, I'd like to make a motion that we defer and ask that they revise the project based on the comments of the DAC.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by HDLC to defer until revisions can be made, and a second by Parks and Parkways. All in favor?
Oh, sorry, Haley, can I just run through the comments so that all the committee members are on the same page?
Yes.
Yeah, so from what I understand, the comments are revising the site design to be more contextual, revising the building design, incorporating more contextual materiality, preserving the street trees to the extent possible, providing setbacks both for the parking lot and building. I'm not sure, Louis, did you have one I missed?
The sidewalk alignment.
Sidewalk alignment.
And I had they need to check their ADA compliance for their parking. But also, it's not retain the existing trees to the extent possible. It's just flat out retain the existing trees.
Joseph, I also have a note about potentially adding pavement for the bus stop.
Mm.
Yes, thank you.
Right, just to add, perhaps, the massing needs to shift in order to accommodate the existing tree canopy.
And you had comments about the windows too, right, Eleanor?
Yeah,
Okay.
is reflected in the comments regarding, reflecting the contextual building.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. So we have the motion by HDLC to defer until the revised plans can be made, including all the comments that were made at DAC. And just recapped, a second by Parks and Parkways. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. The second item is consideration of design review docket 3121 for a property located at 5612 Canal Boulevard. This is a request to permit the construction of an accessory ice machine.
Make a motion to approve subject to meeting the zoning code requirements for this facility and addressing the issue in terms of setback and landscaping.
Seconded.
I'm sorry, the second, was that from the Arts Council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Parks and Parkways to approve, subject to zoning approval and for the setbacks and if any required landscaping would be reviewed. We have a second by the Arts Council. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? and the motion passes. The third item is the consideration of design review docket 3421 for a property at 5330 St. Claude Avenue. This is a request to permit an accessory ice machine.
Same motion, motion to approve, subject to meeting the zoning code requirements for setback and landscaping, if applicable, as well as the conditional use requirements.
We have a motion by Parks and Parkways. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by DPW. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. The final item is consideration of zoning docket 2621 for a property at 2701 Tulane Avenue. This is a request to permit a gas station.
I make a motion to defer to give the applicant time to address the concerns regarding accuracy in the site plan, meeting Article 23, the issue with the driveways, and providing elevations of all 4 elevation sides.
We had the traffic plan or study or diagram.
Traffic, and also the traffic study, yes.
And also the dumpster by the sidewalk.
Well, I think that's going to get resolved by
Okay.
the site planning, accurate site planning.
Okay, we have a motion by Parks and Parkways to defer with the following changes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Louis, was that you?
Yep.
Okay, we have a second by DPW. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. This concludes the March 17th DAC meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Haley.
No.
Yeah, I just for the applicants, just a reminder, the deadline for the next DAC meeting is this Monday, and the 2nd April DAC deadline would be 2 weeks from that. So depending on when you resubmit your application materials, that's when it would be docketed for. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Quick question. So are applicants able to make rebuttals on deferred applications?
So, I mean, Haley can speak to this as well, but the nature of the rebuttal would be in what you propose. I mean, I don't really understand the question. Haley, maybe you can answer.
Typically, at this time, if we have public comments read into the record, that we allow the applicants a chance to provide feedback based on the public comments. But since there was no public comment, we don't have a time for rebuttal at this time of the meeting. Did you want to clarify your question? Did you mean revisions to the plans?
I was thinking time to just respond to all the comments we received, but
no, unless the committee addresses a specific question to you, then that time has passed.
Okay.
I can say, if you additionally want to meet with the staff planner and us as DSC chairs, we'd be happy to kind of go over things at a further kind of granular level. But yeah, otherwise Haley's right there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you can always reach out to DPW too.
Okay.
All right, so this concludes the meeting. Thank you, everyone.